This is Simply Lo-Fi, and you're listening to the expert with a heart.
All right, it's part 2 of our financial planning series on Simply Lo-Fi. I'm Ahalya, keeping you a company for this one as well. And on this episode, we're going to be spotlighting something that IMMPL is very, very good at, which is cross-border financial planning. It is something we've highlighted on the podcasts before, but we're getting a new perspective thanks to Khushbu Agarwal, VP and Head of Financial Planning at IMMPL, and of course, our expert with a heart, Lo-Fi Nablaki, CEO and MD of IMMPL. I want to ask you what the relevance of it is in today's day and age. I have so many friends who don't even live here anymore, who are planning lives 10 years into the future. Tell us how money comes into question and the importance of, taking a cross-border financial lens to your planning journey.
So what is happening is, like we say, we have no boundaries today. It's not so difficult to think, okay, can I go for education to a different country or for a job? That's very normal. Every second family that you see, you've seen so many friends around, will have some aspect of cross-border finance, So either you have a citizenship of a different country and you're living in India, okay, or you are an Indian citizen, you've worked in Singapore and then Australia and then in Dubai, and then you're thinking, should I settle in India or in one of these countries? So there are situations and the thoughts are quite open now. You're not restricted. Now the problem is with each country that you pick and choose, there is a jurisdiction, there is a tax law, there is a reporting requirement, and you need to comply with every aspect of it. So the more countries get added to your kitty, the more your insurance. So I think that's relevant because most of us have, connections to more than one country for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Plans change though, right? It happens sometimes very suddenly. An opportunity comes your way, it's too good to refuse, you're out of the country, right? So how can you do cross-border financial planning when you haven't even considered the scenario of crossing the border yourself physically?
Yeah, so I think the point is that as soon as you know or you're thinking about something, it's good to have the discussion to understand what are the implications on tax, on reporting, on currency movement or investment options which will no longer be available, or investment options which will open up because I'm going to move, right? So that's the part that we say that you inform as soon as you know. Otherwise, it could be even after you did not know and you went suddenly, but you went with the intention of, okay, I'm going to be there for 2 years or 3 years and then I'm either coming back or moving out. Even there could be a planning opportunity to confirm with the client that if you're sure that that's the time you're there, that during this period while you're in that country, don't take action on 1, 2, 3 because that has a negative implication. Just continue with whatever you are doing. There may be an extra reporting to be done, but be aware about that. And let's have no surprises, no penalties, no income tax knocking on your door.
Yeah, no illegalities. By mistake, but illegal nonetheless. Okay. So let's now talk about major life goals, right? You've got education, you've got retirement, that's a big one. So how do you do cross-border financial planning for huge goals? It's hard enough when you're in the same country your whole life.
So what we do is, the first thing that we do is comfort the client to say, okay, we're not asking for a definite answer. Okay, we're not asking you where are you going to spend your retirement, because we know you don't know today. So if I ask you, you'll tell me a country and it's not so relevant. So cross-border always goes with scenarios, okay? And when we do those scenarios, then we know that there are implications on these goals. For example, say education, if you're living abroad and your kid is getting educated there's a different fees that you pay versus, if you come back to India and then the kid is going. Okay, so the goals are different, or probably the goals are the same, but the amount that you need for each goal is very different, There are certain things that you will plan being in a country is required, like say India, you'll require a social security system is not that great, so you'll require, that amount to be planned for. But if you're in countries like, UK, US, Singapore, then you know that you're covered, for your education fees. So you have to understand what are the possible scenarios and then come up.
Yeah, I am remembering a client of ours who was in Sweden on work. And we were, he wanted to leave his job and come back and start something of his own in India. And we understood that because his child is studying there and because he's working there, the education was free. But if he moved back, then he would have to pay for that education. So the scenario building comes even in situations like this, that, okay, here's option A, you continue, continue in the job that sucks, stay on for some time, just because yes, education is free, and then you come back. But you are saying, oh, I lose ABC opportunity if I do it later, so I'd rather come back. Then how much income do you need to start earning in the next, say, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, so that it compensates for that loss of the education costs, right? So scenarios could be even like this, but they could be far more complicated because we do come across people who might have 3 jurisdictions in play and sometimes more, because other than India, many countries allow dual citizenships. So people who have moved from country A to B and have citizenships of both, and then maybe get married to someone in country C. So now there are 4 countries in play with whatever action that they need to take. So I think it's always, typically for the client, they start asking, okay, what is better? If I do this, how much will I save? Will I lose from country A to B to C? But I think our questions go back to, why are you likely to prefer B to A? And for how much time and under what circumstance, and with what situation in life or with jobs or markets would your choices change? So there's a lot of scenario building. So it almost seems to indicate that there's no need of a plan because it's very fluid. But I think it throws out the implications or the worst case scenarios or things that you need to guard against or take care of earlier before you take that decision.
So, because you mentioned scenario building is so important in cross-border, I wonder for your client, right? And in that dynamic, when it's a lot of what ifs, isn't it overwhelming sometimes to have to think and answer those questions? How do you navigate that aspect of cross-border financial planning?
I don't think it's straightforward. Khushbu may have a more detailed, specific answer, but I think it's a question of really making them think by asking them questions. And we are not saying you define exactly, but we get broad indications of, say, someone from India who's lived large part of their life, say, in the UK, to say that when I retire, it is likely that I will spend 4 months in India and 8 months in the UK or vice versa. Or they'll say, okay, it could be 4-8 or 6-6. So those two become scenarios as an example.
Yeah, so like you said, with experiences, we kind of tell them, could this be a scenario that you want to look at? Okay, and kind of looking a little ahead to say that, okay, if your kids are settled in a different country, think about a time when, your grandkids would be there, you would be retired, you want to spend more time with them. Okay, which is natural, right? Because you are all free. Now, if you want to spend time, there's money involved to travel, to stay. You don't want to be dependent on your kids for your expenses. Then you want to, have something for your grandkids as well. So we try and get them into those situations, and then it starts becoming a more relevant.
What is the most jurisdictions that have ever been in play for any of your clients?
So at one point in time, maybe 4 is what I guess now. But let me tell you that the same client has been through 6 jurisdictions because their work took them from India to Indonesia to US, back to India, then South Korea, then Japan. I'm thinking of going, so start planning. Then no, I'm coming back to India. So it's a variety of things that we do face, and actually we're very grateful to such companies and such clients because we learn from those. So it's not that we know all the whatever number. I don't even know how many countries there are, 140, 150, 200, whatever that number is. It's impossible to know everything, right? And it's chemistry, right? If the combination of A plus B is not equal to what it is B plus C. It's very different. So
4 jurisdictions at one time.
yeah, I think so. Or more.
5, because
Five,
dual
that's so-
citizenship with the...
Yeah, with somewhere else. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I had the spouse who had dual citizenship, then living in India, and the husband had 2 other dual citizenships. So that was their life before they got married. Wow. Then they got married, been in one country, and then decided, okay, now it looks like to be in India. We don't know where they're
And let me complicate it. If I have 2 kids and one of them is born in one country and one in the other, so that has happened.
So very international clients indeed. Fantastic. So, Khushbu, you brought up the idea of social security, right? When you were talking about planning. How do you do that in a cross-border scenario? And is it like a singular approach that you can take?
Not sure. I think cross-border, nothing is singular because every jurisdiction has their own rules and sub-rules. And what happens is, apart from India, a lot of countries, the social security is very important, So they have a huge taxes, but that means that they'll get a pension after a certain age. Okay. Yeah. And if you don't incorporate that, it looks like they're nowhere. I mean, you'll actually go and ask them, why are you there? Why are you not in India? Because your finances don't look good then. So when these countries get involved, then we're saying, okay, there is an implication for you to have, your retirement in one country. And these are the implications. What we spoke about, the school fees, right? So that's the security system that they have, that for these countries, it's free for your kid. Okay, so you plan it that way. But when you're planning a move, then you also plan the same thing. Okay. So I think that understanding and having that incorporated in the plan makes it a little more realistic. Otherwise, if you're not looking at that, then you're missing those elements or the impact that it will have to consider a country for residents.
Also, I think the big piece that people tend to ignore is inheritance tax, because in India...
My next question.
So because in India it doesn't exist. Many countries in the West have it. And as an example, US has significantly high exemption limits at this present moment if you are a US citizen. But as soon as you have a situation where you are married and one of you is US citizen and one is not, then the rules are complicated and sometimes not in favor of the client. So planning for that also becomes an element that we have to incorporate and at least point out. And surprisingly, this piece on inheritance tax has remained unannounced, uninformed to most people. A lot of people, when we talk about it, say, this is the first time I'm hearing about something like this, and I have worked in this company for the last 15 years and I have stock in that company, but I'm living in India. Yeah. And even that will, get hit with inheritance tax if you were to pass.
Yeah.
So sort of those issues, I think, right? And you must have seen more complicated ones.
And the impact actually is very huge, So if you're planning that, okay, I have this 10 crores, okay, and it will get passed on, therefore everything is sorted.
Yeah.
As soon as it gets passed on, you have to pay 40% into taxes. So you only left with 6 and not 10. And if you don't plan for it, then So I think the impact, and people don't realize because it's not there in India. So you wouldn't go ahead and think about it, that, that is also an element that you need to kind of plan for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just falls into the bucket of certain things that get overlooked, right? Because, like you said, awareness may be low. Maybe in certain countries it's just not a thing, and then in other countries it is. So maybe let's talk about that now. What are some common mistakes that you've seen people make when it comes to cross-border financial planning? Go wild. Anything counts.
I think it starts from, overlooking, okay, when you have a move, you have so much in mind because you're changing countries and you're so much focused on, okay, where I'm going to stay, what I'm going to do, etc., that finances first take a back seat, as simple as from changing your bank account type, doing your KYC again. So there are n number of requirements, which for a common person is very difficult because you're already dealing with a new environment, to be in. Okay. Then like we discussed, if you don't understand the nitty-gritties of either the taxation, the reporting, the social security, then you don't know. For example, some countries have a choice whether you want to make a contribution or not make a contribution to certain things. Now, for that, you need to understand what is going to be the implication if you stay in the same country or you take out, you want to move to a different country. So there's so many decisions to take basis the new rules and jurisdictions that you are getting into. And I think the other major piece that people tend to miss is a little long term. Fine, they understand and they take a decision thinking that they're going to be there, okay? But like I said earlier, we try and put questions to them, okay? You're looking at this, but what if you move? Then it's going to have an impact. So that impact, because this so short term, okay, today I have to do this, I'll do this, and it's a tick mark activity, And really long term, up to retirement, if I'm talking to the younger clients, no one has thought about it. Okay, if I ask them, okay, what happens if your parents need care? And the bigger question is, what happens if you need a care? See, why will I need a care? At this stage, fine, you don't need a care, but at 60, at 70, you probably, yeah. So I think those things people miss. So then we try and ask them questions like, if there's a requirement, okay, let's put it today, you need a care. Which country you want to be in? Do you want to come back to India? Are you comfortable that way? Or are you comfortable with another country? So planning for, that long-term care. You talk about, a medical care that you need, a daycare. In India itself, it is like 40,000, 50,000 per month. Okay, you talk about other countries, it'll be $5,000 per month. Now, your normal expense is $5,000. You need additional $5,000 for the daycare. But you've not planned for it, which automatically means that you'll have to do some adjustments in your regular expenses. You can't live the life that you're thinking of.
Yeah.
So I think those are certain things that people kind of miss.
So just to end today's episode, when it comes to cross-border financial planning, we started it, right? Let's do a little full circle moment. We started it by saying, why is it so relevant? Let's end it by saying, how can someone even get started on it, even if in the moment they're not considering moving somewhere, then, but maybe 10 years from now, they've had some thought at some point like, oh, maybe I'd like to live abroad. Is it something that they need to, start planning for, and how do they start planning for it?
I mean, my personal take is if you're not thinking about it today, there's no point in worrying about it today. But I think that beyond just the finances piece, the newer element that's coming in is also for people to start looking at citizenship by investment. And then that has its own sense of issues that come up on taxation, etc. And that takes a while. So if at all there's thinking on that line, then yes, it's good to have conversations with the right professionals who can advise, here's option A, here's option B, and then we can look at the aspects of taxation, reporting, your assets, your goals, your family, and what it means. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I think you may not always have a situation where you will think in advance, So we have had long-term clients, who have been in India, never had the thought, but then an opportunity arises, right? Yeah. But just that because we've known them, so the ideology is something which is very much, known. They know us, we know them. Okay, so that's the comfort. And that's where, what I was saying, from the first day when that opportunity started, they came back and started discussing with us, which had the opportunity to plan a little in advance and then, kind of take steps. And because we, again, understand the client, saying, okay, are you going to come back? There's because you have this roots in India. And so I think that kind of helps you. You'll need a lot of things. You just need, don't need an advisor. You need like a tax consultant who understands both jurisdictions, okay? So you need access to that professional network, your CA would change, your advisor needs to be aware of the cross-border things. So there are a lot of elements that will come into picture. You may not have the solution, even we may not have the solution. But I think the most important thing that we empower the clients is, can we get them the right questions to ask? So if you're going and finding another tax consultant, go and ask these 5 questions, because, these are something that would be required. So that is something I think that can work for them.
Yeah, and I think first and foremost, keep the channels of communication open. So when you have a thought and an opportunity comes your way, the first thing would probably be to, consult your advisor. And in case it's IMMPL, then they have a great professional network that can help you out. With that, we arrive at the end of this 2-part series. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, Khushbu and Lovai, for your invaluable insights as always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was an episode of the Simply Lovai podcast series, Expert with a Heart.